Okay, well, welcome everyone. It's our March edition of the Let's See You Well speaker series. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Erin Cunningham Ritter. My pronouns are she and her, and I represent the College of Arts and Sciences as well as the Be Well program. Today, I am really excited and honored to welcome you to this Let's See You Well event titled City of Boulder Home Ownership Resources with Eli Urken, who is the Home Ownership Manager with the City of Boulder Housing and Human Services. Before we begin, please note that closed captioning is available by clicking the live transcription button in the menu bar. And so I will record this session and post it on the Be Well webpage. And we've included time for a little bit of question and answer at the end. Please do check out more resources for which support our culture of care here in the College of Arts and Sciences and across the CU Boulder community. We've got resources for students, staff, faculty, workshops, research, lots to check out. And so really quickly, a little plug. Next month, our Let's See You Well speaker will be Diane Hirschhorn. Some of you may recognize her from the previous two financial wellness talks that she's given, and we're following up with the third installment. She provides really great personal financial planning resources, and you don't need to have attended the first two previous sessions to get a lot out of the third. So be on the lookout for more information coming your way, and we'll post that just as soon as we can on the website. So now, without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker, Eli Urken, Home Ownership Manager for the City of Boulder's Office of Housing and Human Services. As part of our Let's See You Well speaker series, Eli will share details of Boulder's home ownership programs, including below market rate housing, down payment assistance, and other valuable resources. We look forward to learning how these initiatives promote affordability, stability, and well-being in our community. Eli, welcome. We're so thrilled to have you. I'll do a stop share for you. Go.
Okay, thank you. And just pulling up my PowerPoint here. Okay. Is that showing up okay?
Looks good, Eli.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome. So this is a version. Hi, I'm Eli Urken. I use they, them pronouns. Very nice to meet you all. So glad you're here. This is a version of our just same homeownership program orientation that I would provide anywhere. So it's applicable to anyone. Um, and that's me. I'm Eli, like I said. And so we'll just get going. So if you decide to apply to the program, there's a test that goes along with this orientation. And this orientation is also pre-recorded and available on our website. So you can rewatch it there and go through those test questions. But if you decide to apply, that test goes along with this orientation, and you submit it with your application as proof of completing this. So today I'll talk about several things: what programs we have available, the program requirements, what it's like owning a permanently affordable home in the City of Boulder's homeownership program, what the application and buying process is like, and who you will work with throughout the process. So before we get started, though, here are some statistics. So we have currently at this moment in time 763 homes in the program. In 2024, 33 of those sold. So you can see it's not all of those homes are available at once. They're mostly all already owned by folks. And at the end of 2024, we had 155 certified applicants in the program. And so that to me just shows there's much more demand than supply. And it can be competitive because of that. So then on the right side of the slide here, we have a little graphic that shows the number of homes in the program at different price ranges. So this is the same 763 homes. 175 of those are kind of below that $175,000 price range. Between 175 and 225, there's the bulk 263 homes. Between 225 and 275,000, there's a good chunk, 179 homes. Above that price range is less, so 275 to 375. There's 126 homes, and again, that's at this moment in time. And then this higher price ranged homes, that's our middle, mostly some in the prior range too, but that's our middle income program. In that 375 to 500 range, there's 20 homes in that range right now. All right, so the 4 programs that we have in the program right now is our Permanently Affordable Homes Program, our Solution Grant, our Shared Appreciation Loan, we also known as House to Homeownership, and our Middle Income Down Payment Assistance Program. I'll talk about all 4 of these coming up. So our main program that you might have heard about in the program already, or in the city already, is our Permanently Affordable Homes. This is an opportunity to purchase a home at below market rate prices. The homes in the program are scattered all throughout the city. They're not clustered in one particular area. Homes are listed on our website with them for sale. So you might see something on, oh, I don't know, Zillow or Redfin, but we don't consider a home for sale until it's listed on our website. And then these homes must be sold to buyers who meet the income, asset, and other program requirements that I'll talk about today. And the homes remain affordable forever. So that's a permanent affordability. You cannot buy out of the restrictions. Our second program we offer is our Solution Grant. This is a down payment assistance grant program to be paired with Permanently Affordable Homes program. It covers up to 5% of the home's purchase price. The amount is determined after going under contract and once those final loan details are available. So it depends on what your actual costs to get to closing are of what the grant amount will be. And that, yeah, I mean, it depends on those actual closing costs, down payment requirements, and your available funds. It's a need-based grant. Funds are limited, and so it's essentially first come, first served program. Grant commitments are made about 2 weeks before closing, and grants are not paid back, but the future resale price of your home, which is restricted, is reduced by the grant amount. So I'll give an example next. So let's say you're purchasing an affordable home for $200,000. Your lender, so you go out and get your own lender. I'll talk about that more later. Your lender requires 5% down. So that's $10,000 down payment required. So you're getting a loan for $190,000. In addition to the down payment, there are also closing costs. So $6,000 in closing costs. If we add that 6,000 and the 10,000, your total due at closing is $16,000. Then let's say you've been saving up, you've got $6,500 to contribute to the transaction. So that leaves a gap of $9,500. So that gap can be paid for by the Solution Grant. And that ends up being just shy of 5% of the purchase price. So it's not the full 5% because that's not what was needed. Then let's say you own your home for several years and you go to sell in the future, your starting price on how we would calculate that future resale price starts with the $200,000 purchase price minus the $9,500 grant. So your starting price would be $190,500. Our next program is our Shared Appreciation Loan Program. We also call this H2O, or House to Ownership, House to Home Ownership. This loan program is used to purchase a market rate home within Boulder city limits. It's a deferred loan for up to $100,000. No repayments are required on the loan for 30 years, but a balloon payment is due at the end of that period. Or if you sell your home sooner, then it would become due at that time. So whichever comes first. The home remains at market rate, so it's not a deed restricted affordable home. it can be sold at market rate in the future. So next I will talk about an example. So calculating the loan payback for the H2O loan, first we start with the original loan amount. So in this scenario, so it's the original loan amount plus a percentage of the appreciation of the value that your home has earned during that time. So in this example, we have a $500,000 purchase price, and you receive 15% loan, which is $75,000. And remember, that loan is not due for 30 years unless the home is sold before then. Then let's say the home gained value from 500,000 and now it's worth $700,000. So that amount it gained, so the amount it appreciated is $200,000. So what's owed back? The original loan amount, so that 75,000 plus 15% of that 200,000 gain. So that's $30,000. So the amount owed back would be 100 and that 75 plus 30, which would be $105,000. Let's say your home goes down in value. Pretty unlikely in Boulder, but could happen, I guess. Never know. Let's say now your home's worth $450,000. What would you owe back? Still that $75,000. You wouldn't owe any percentage of appreciation because no appreciation occurred, but there wouldn't be a discount given on the original loan amount. And then our fourth and final program is our Middle Income Down Payment Assistance Pilot Program. So this is used to purchase a market rate home within Boulder city limits, similar to the last program. There's maximum prices for the homes themselves. So 1.6 million for a single family home or a standalone home, or 544,000 for an attached home, so a condo, a townhome, a duplex. The home would become a part of the permanently affordable program with resale price restrictions. And this is a deferred loan for up to $200,000 with 0% interest. There's no payment required on the loan for 15 years or until sold, similar to the last program. But the full amount of the loan is due back at maturity, so at the end of that 15 years. Okay. So next I'll talk about the program requirements for all four of these programs. So income limits, this is the big one. So you and your household have to be under the income limits in order to qualify for the programs. So how do we determine household size, you might ask? It's going to be the number of people who live in the home or who will live in the home you plan to purchase. So this could be you and a spouse and a child. This could be you and your bestie. It's anyone who will be living in the home regardless of relationship. And for like children with shared custody, it would be anyone living in the home 50% of the time or more would be counted in the household. So let's take, for example, a 3-person household, and we would calculate income based on kind of your current income, and we calculate income going forward for the next 12 months. So if you're for sure receiving a raise in the next 12 months, we're going to count that as part of your income. And we count gross income for W-2 work, so for wage income. And if you have like self-employment income, we count the net of that. So business income minus business expenses for net income in these calculations. You might be thinking, I don't have self-employment income, but some things that we would consider self-employment income would be like a side gig, perhaps. Like if you drive for Uber or Lyft on the side and you're paid a 1099, that is considered self-employment income, and we would do the net income for that. Or let's say you have private therapy clients, and that's 1099 income. That would be considered self-employment income. An Etsy business, dog walking, all of that we would count. And even if you don't report that on your taxes, maybe talk to a tax advisor, but we would count that. So you can see here at the example, like a 3-person household, for the Solution Grant program, the limit is $106,170 per year. These dollar amounts get updated every year, typically around April or May. It depends on when the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, releases numbers. But these are the numbers for now. You can see the shared appreciation loan and middle income down payment assistance loan program are quite a bit higher there. So a 3-person household limit is $157,680. So this goes all the way up to middle incomes. And then the permanently affordable homes, slightly different. They're based on a slightly different metric, but very similar. I don't need to go into the nuances there. But the 3-person limit for the maximum income limit home is $158,730. So check back at the website regularly because again, these get updated every year, once per year. And each individual home in the permanently affordable homes program will and may have a different income limit. So each home, like where the price was set, and when that home came into the program, started that home's price. So each home may have a different income limit, depending. So if you're interested in a very particular home, check that home's income limits to see if you'd qualify. The next thing I will talk about here is reductions to income. So there are these 2 specific scenarios where we can make any deductions to the income calculation. One is if you have childcare expenses that are incurred in order to work. And 2 is any medical expenses that exceed 3% of your gross income for a household who has someone with a permanent disability. So those are the only 2 scenarios we can reduce income by. Something that gets asked sometimes is, well, I have really high student loan payments. Can that reduce my income? And the answer is no. We don't make income deductions for student loan payments. That is considered, but it's as part of your debt to income ratio, which we'll talk about later, but it's not considered an income. And then there are limits to gift income. So let's say friends or family, provide you with a little bit of funds to, here or there. We would count that in your income total. Gift income cannot exceed 20% of your total household income in order to qualify for the city programs. Next, let's talk about asset limits. So assets, what might be considered an asset? Here we're talking about usually money that you have in any type of bank account, checking account, savings account, money market account, investment accounts, retirement accounts. We would not count like personal use vehicles. We would not count your furniture or clothing or anything like that. We're just talking about usually just money you have in the bank. Now, occasionally you might if you have a valuable collection, that might be considered here. But we would rely on you to provide what the value of your collection would be. And so here it depends on household size again. So remember, we talked about who will live in the home. For the solution grant, the asset limit is a bit vague, kind of on purpose, because it's dependent on each situation, and it's generally under $15,000 to be eligible for any grants for that solution grant. But for all other programs, the asset limit is there. So for a 3-person household, the asset limit is $197,100. So if you have less than that in assets, you qualify for the program. If you have more than that in assets, let's talk about a couple things coming up. But if you're truly over this number, you would not qualify for the program. You can receive gifted assets. So let's say that you are in a really amazing, lucky situation to have family who can provide a gift for you, or friends, doesn't matter the relation. That is A-okay. We're all for that. And the limit though is 20% of the home's purchase price. And there can be no expectation of payback from the gift giver. So let's say, on that example of a $200,000 home, you are able to get a gift of $40,000. That can't be a loan of $40,000 where that friend or family expects you to pay that back. That would be a private loan and would not be allowed. So there can be no expectation of payback. Now, we do have a couple deductions to assets that we make. So retirement asset exemptions. So once per household, based on the age of the eldest person in the household, we make a deduction based on retirement assets. So if if you're under 40 and have 30,000 in a retirement account, a designated retirement account, then we would remove that from your asset total. Um, and 40 to 55, it's $55,000, excuse me, and over 55 years of age is 110,000. So what's a designated retirement account? This could be a 401k, a pension, a 457, an IRA, a Roth IRA, etc. If you have funds in one of these designated accounts, those deductions can be made. So now let's say, for example, you're under 40, but you have $40,000 in a designated retirement account. That's okay. 30,000 would be exempted, and the additional 10,000 would just count towards your asset total. Now, as long as your assets are still under the limits on the previous slides, you'd be eligible for the program. Okay, yeah. Next is down payment exemption. So we also deduct the amount of your down payment from your asset total. For most households, the maximum down payment exemption is 20% of the home's purchase price. So let's say you're buying a home that's $200,000. That maximum down payment exemption is $40,000. We would subtract $40,000 from your assets total. And as long as the amount that remains is under the limits, you're eligible. And there, let's say you wanted to put 50,000 down, you're welcome to do that. That additional 10,000 would still count towards your asset total. There is a distinction here, though. If a household is designated as retired or permanently disabled, then your entire down payment can be exempted from your asset total. So you could pay for the home 100% in cash, and as long as your remaining assets are below the limits, you would be eligible to purchase and eligible for the program. How you might be saying, I might be retired, but I'm not sure. Well, here's how we define it for the program. At least one member of the household is age 62 or older. At least 50% of the household's total income comes from retirement sources. So, retirement sources of income could be Social Security, a pension, like a para pension, withdrawals from a designated retirement account. So, like withdrawals from a 401k or IRA, are the typical things we see for retirement income sources. And then the third criteria here for if you meet our definition of retired is that if the retired person is still working and earning income, that earned income cannot be more than the annual Social Security permitted income cap from employment or contract income. So that amount gets updated by Social Security every year. Gosh, I meant to check the exact amount this year, but I forgot. I think it's around $16,000 or $17,000. Maybe it's 18 or 19 now. I think my memory is a bit dated, but around that range. So those are the income and asset requirements. Next is other program requirements. So one of the requirements is to complete this orientation, proven by that orientation test. It's not graded, so don't worry. Just to prove that you've done it. There's a second class that's required. It's called the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority approved. We always shorten this to an acronym we say as CHAFA, the CHAFA approved home buyer education class. So that's usually a 7 or 8 hour class. CHAFA has a bunch of agencies around the state that offer this approved class. And you're welcome to take it with any of the approved providers, whatever is most convenient to you. Usually that's offered about once per month for most of those agencies. And there's like online options, there's in-person options. Sometimes the in-person options have pizza, I've heard. So anyway, and it's usually it's free if it's in person, and I think some of the online options do have a cost. Another requirement is that at least one household member must work at least 30 hours per week or more unless retired or disabled. And so that 30-hour work requirement is waived for a retired or disabled household, but otherwise, that 30 hours per week is the minimum. And that can be averaged. So let's say you might work 9 out of 12 months of the year full time. We would add, and that's maybe 40 hours per week for 9 months out of 12. We would average that, and that averages out to 30 hours per week over the whole year. Um, so yeah, some folks I think might work like 20 hours per week with a work study, and that would not meet the minimum requirements for the program. The thing to note there, though, is we would go by what the supervisor or manager writes on the verification of employment form for how many hours per work are documented there. And so you might think about, I think there's like an automated employment verification letter that CU might offer. Don't quote me on this because I'm no expert there, but have seen that in the past. And I would check if that is to your benefit or if having your supervisor fill out our standard form might be more to your benefit to meet that requirement. And then the next requirement is that you must have a work history of at least 1 year in most cases. That might be waived for someone who was recently divorced and wasn't working in an earned income scenario before that divorce. But most cases are 1 year of work required. Other program requirements, you must have a minimum of $2,000 cash to bring to the transaction. That can come from a gift. So keep that in mind if savings is hard, which is for so many of us. The next criteria is that you have to be able to qualify for and obtain a first mortgage loan. And that's unless retired or permanently disabled and paying all cash. So you have to be able to get a mortgage from an institutional lender. And then that mortgage does have to have a meet the debt to income ratio requirement of 42% or less in most cases. What's debt to income ratio, you might ask? Well, this is a comparison of your monthly gross debt to your monthly gross income that demonstrates affordability. This is how we can tell, like, hey, this home payment and all your other debts are going to be affordable to you. So in this example, we have the debts listed on the left, and these are simplified examples. So of course, keep that in mind. We have a student loan payment of $100, a car payment of $100, and a monthly housing expense of $1,060. The total debt there is $1,260. And then on the right side is income. So this is a simplified scenario again, too. So from teaching income, that's gross income, and that's $2,500 a month. That's before taxes are taken out and all of that. Taxes and benefits is what that gross means. And then maybe you do some Uber driving as well, and that's a $450 per month net. So that's after, you take out your expenses for gas and insurance and all of that. And then maybe you get $50 a month from a loved one and from gift income. And all of that together is $3,000 a month of gross income. So to calculate that debt to income ratio, we divide 1,260 by 3,000, and we get the 42%. And if you're slightly above that, you can still apply for the program. There are many scenarios that can change this. So getting a larger down payment gift or down payment if you get down payment from any other source, you're welcome to use it in the program. So maybe you're able to get a 20,000 down payment assistance, and that could lower your debt to income ratio. So if you're above that right now, it might still be worth applying to the program, and you can work on lowering that debt to income ratio while you're waiting in the program, which can be some time too, which I'll talk about in a bit. Next, more requirements. So other requirements for the program, you cannot own another home at the time of purchasing or closing on the home in the program. Let's say you do own another home, that home would have to sell and close before you could purchase the home in our program. And the proceeds of the sale, so the profits you make from that sale of that other home, would just be counted in your asset total, and you'd still have to be under the asset limits to qualify. You must own or occupy the property, so the home you purchase. So this means you have to live in the home, the affordable home. It's a program meant to make opportunities to live in Boulder available to those with lower incomes. It's not an investment or income generating opportunity. So you have to live in the home. The number of bedrooms can only exceed the number of people in the household by one. So in other words, a one-person household can purchase up to a two-bedroom home. A two-person household can purchase up to a three-bedroom home. Three-person household can purchase up to a four-bedroom home. And then if you're divorced or in the process of divorcing, this must be finalized with a court-granted divorce or separation agreement before applying to the program. Many things are determined in a divorce, including income. Maybe there's alimony or maintenance or child support. That is all included in income calculations. So if we don't know what those will be, we can't calculate your income. We can't determine assets. We don't know what asset split will be. And so those just, have to be finalized before applying. So everything we just talked about was requirements for all four of our programs, and there are a couple additional requirements for the Shared Appreciation Loan Program. So this program, you must be a first-time home buyer, which is defined as not having owned a home within the past 3 years unless divorced within that past 3 years. And for that program alone, you must work within the Boulder city limits. For all of our other programs, you do not have to work within Boulder city limits to qualify, but it does give you a little bit of a leg up, which I'll talk about later. And then additional requirement for the middle income down payment assistance program, you do have to have a minimum of 5% down, not just the $2,000. So 5% is usually much more than that from your own funds to go forward. So you might ask, are there ever any exceptions to these requirements? Never to income limits. The income limits are strict. They are contractually and sometimes federally mandated. So we don't have any wiggle room to make any exceptions to income limits. If you're a dollar over the income limit, you're not eligible for that home. But all of our other program requirements, we could make exceptions to the rules. It depends if it's justified and approved through an exception request process through our advisory committee, our home ownership committee with staff approval. So I like to kind of describe it as, the rules are black and white and life is gray. And sometimes life situations meet the spirit of a rule, but not the letter of the rule. And so those are the scenarios where it might make the most sense to ask for an exception to that rule. So if justified, or if you just have questions of, hey, I'm not sure this might be a scenario for an exception request, contact us, and we'll have our contact information at the end so that we can discuss the possibility of an exception. So next, what is it like owning a permanently affordable home, which would include purchasing from the middle income down payment assistance program since those homes become permanently affordable? Well, we have this document. It's called a covenant. So buyers will sign the permanently affordable housing covenant at closing. The covenant defines the owner's rights and responsibilities of owning that affordable home. So the terms include the resale price limitations, the capital improvement and capital update credit limits, which I'll talk about both of those more in depth in a couple slides. That talks about the owner occupancy requirement. So you're, signing a legally binding agreement to live in the home. And there, it also talks about limitations on rental. So there's never any short-term renting allowed in affordable homes as per separate city statutes. But the covenant dictates some very limited rental opportunities that are allowed, such as you can rent a room in the home after the first year of ownership, and you can rent that a room at any time after that. And then you can rent for 1 year out of every 7 year period, but only after the first 5 years of ownership. Um, and that's to account for life. Things come up in life. Maybe you have to go take care of a sick a parent for a time and then come back to the home. That's just one scenario. There could be many. And then the covenant also dictates who the home can be sold to in the future. So it has to be sold to a qualified applicant. And how the home is marketed when sold is uh, in that covenant. And then there are also refinance limitations. So when you're refinanced, so you can refinance your loan on an affordable home at any time you'd like, but you can't take out more than 93% of the current value at that time. And the loan just has to be approved by the city. So we're happy to provide the full 12-page legal document if you're interested. Contact us with the contact information at the end if you'd like to take a look at that. So this, I'll talk about the future sales price calculation. So first, in order to calculate what you can sell your home for in the future, we start with the original purchase price. And if you received a solution grant, we deduct the amount of the grant if you received that. Then we take that value and add annual appreciation. So we add a little bit of, to the home's price, to the home's value each year, and it depends on changes in area economic indicators. So we look at two indicators. We look at the consumer price index, and we look at the change in consumer price index, and we look at the change in the area median income, specifically for the Boulder, Denver metro area. The indicators areas they can sometimes shift over time, but it's generally our area. And whatever is the lower of the two is the amount that will be added each year. And then it's in a range between 1 and 3.5% per year. So if the lower of those two area economic indicators is less than 1%, then you would get a guaranteed 1% increase. And if the lower of the two is between, you would get that. Like, let's say it's 2.7, you'd get 2.7. Over 3.5%, you're capped at that 3.5% increase for that year. And it's prorated to the day. So let's say you buy in a January and you sell in June, you would get, whatever years and a half a year of appreciation. Next, we add approved capital improvement or capital update credits, which I'll talk about more on the next slide. Then we add $650 for a closing cost allowance. So this is to account for some of the seller's closing costs. That might not cover all of them, but it's a little bit. And then we add some costs to sell. So we add real estate agent commissions into the price, a limited amount, of 2.5%. And this is meant to be split 1.25% to each agent. So 1.25% to buyer's agent, 1.25% to seller's agent. Alternatively, if owner and seller of a property decides they want to do for sale by owner, we would add 1.25% just for the buyer's side and then a $550 flat amount for seller's marketing costs. Then for this final calculation here, we could subtract any amount for excessive damage based on an inspection. So let's say there's some excessive damage done to the home, and that's going to cost $2,000 to fix. $2,000 would be deducted from the price. And owners and sellers have the opportunity to make those fixes instead of reducing the price. And that's how we come to the maximum resale price. I'm trying to think I don't think there's anything I'm leaving out there. Very detailed. All right. Next, I'll talk about the capital improvements. So capital improvements, so there's a limited amount of capital improvement projects that can increase your home's value over time. There's a maximum of $30,000 per life for the lifetime ownership of the property. And that's in place to keep the homes affordable forever and to encourage folks to improve and increase the value of their homes and receive some return on investment for these improvements. But just like the open market, it's never a full return on investment. So you get 80% of the out-of-pocket costs gets added to the future resale value of the home for the specific eligible items. So there's a capital improvement policy that can be updated annually. And it currently includes energy efficiency improvements. So adding solar panels could increase the home's value, 80% of the out-of-pocket cost. Increasing habitable space, so finishing a basement or doing an addition to a home could increase the cost. Adding a cooling system or replacing a cooling system of a certain age. So air conditioning, whole house fans, ceiling fans, evaporative coolers. There are some energy efficiency requirements of some of those. So check the policy before you make any improvements. Replacing flooring can increase the value for certain projects. So if you replace over 10-year-old carpet or vinyl with hardwood, engineered wood, luxury vinyl, plank with certain specifications, or ceramic tile can increase the value. Adding a radon gas mitigation system or remodeling kitchens or bathrooms that are over 20 years old can add capital update credit. Capital update credits depreciate over time because in another 20 years, that kitchen's going to need another remodel. And you must obtain pre-approval in order to get full credit. And then, yeah, check the policy. If you take anything away from this, it's check the policy before beginning any project. Great. So that's what it's like owning a permanently affordable home. Next, we'll talk about the application and buying process. So the first step to looking into the program is to apply for and be pre-approved for a mortgage. Um, the and remember, with a total debt to income ratio of under 42%, then once you have that loan pre-approval, complete this orientation. And again, you can watch the video at any time. Again, and then you complete the city application. So we have an application wait list. So get your name on the wait list, and then you should receive an invitation to apply within 6 to 8 weeks. Actually, right now, I think our time is under 4 weeks. I think it's around 3 weeks, which is amazing, but I can't guarantee that'll be the case when you go to to apply. But to get on that application wait list, and then once you receive your invitation to apply, complete the application. So we use the Boulder County Homeownership Common application, so you can apply to our program and several other similar area programs with one application, including just one application fee, which is just $25. So there's a City of Longmont program. They also administer a Boulder County down payment assistance program. So that's to be used outside of Boulder city limits, but within county limits for buying a market rate home. There's also Thistle Communities program that has homes within Boulder, and there's Habitat for Humanity, and there's Elevation Community Land Trust, who has homes within Boulder, which you can apply. What we'll do is if you apply to us first, which is a box you check on the application, we'll fully process your application first, and then we will forward your complete application after we work with you for 2 to 4 weeks usually. Then we'll forward your application to the other programs, and they may ask some clarifying questions based on their somewhat slightly different program requirements sometimes. Make sure to include all required documentation. So that's the biggest thing that we see is that most applications are not complete. And so follow that checklist really carefully to make sure you've provided enough pay stubs, enough bank statements, et cetera, taxes and W-2s. But if you are only interested in the Shared Appreciation Loan Program, that program is administered by our funding partner, the Impact Development Fund. So you contact them directly for just that program. But if you're interested in all the programs, apply to us first. So after you apply, if your application is complete, you will receive preliminary certification letter via email within approximately 10 business days. But usually it does take about 2 to 4 weeks to process applications because we're going to review everything in depth. We might have some clarifying questions. And if there's a couple missing documents, you'll have time to submit those. But we must have a complete application within 30 days of initial submission, or you'd have to apply again 6 months down the road. Then once you receive that preliminary certification, you're now eligible to enter the fair selection process or go under contract on a home that might be post-selection is what we like to call it, and for homes that are immediately available. And I'll speed it along here because I see we're coming towards the end of time. I want to have enough time for questions. So to maintain time in the program, you have to recertify at the end of a year. It's actually a little before a year. It's at about 11 months. Recertifying is free if completed by the deadline. Homes are listed for sale for a 30-day required marketing period. No offers can be made during that time. Instead, interested applicants can submit the selection process entry form, and that's after you've completed the application process, remember. And then we hold a fair selection process at the end of that 30 days. We will take everyone who's eligible and who entered, we'll sort them by preference tiers, and then we'll do random drawings for if there's more than one person in a preference tier. So we give preference to those that work in Boulder, those that work in Boulder over a year, and those who are continuously certified in the program for over a year. And then some larger homes will have additional preferences layered in for larger households. And then for some households with a disability accommodation, they may receive a higher preference for homes that meet their specific need in a home. For instance, if someone has mobility needs, like let's say they're a wheelchair user and they need a home with no steps, and then a home with no steps comes up, they could receive a higher preference for that home. And check each web listing for details. Here's the same information in another format. So tier 1 is work in Boulder over a year, in the program over a year. Tier 2, work in Boulder over a year and certified less than a year, etc. It is harder to get a home if you don't work in Boulder, but it's not impossible. Here's an example from our a favorite show of mine, Parks and Rec. So we have, and actually due to time, I think I'll skip through this example. But we take everyone who's entered, we sort by the preference tiers based on their time worked in Boulder and time in the program. And then we do a random drawing and we use random.org. And then we order everyone. Then the first on the list gets 24 hours to submit a contract. That contract can only be rejected if it's not received within that 24 hours, if it's for less than the maximum resale value, or if that offer has a contingency to sell another home. A seller could just decline that offer. Homes that don't go under contract are then immediately available, and then any certified and eligible buyer could just submit a contract at any time. We actually have a couple homes like that available right now. So you could purchase a home in as little as 2 months right now, I think. But typically, a really quick timeline is 3 to 4 months. It's usually between 9 months and a year and a half to buy a home through the program. It depends on your specific needs in a home, what preference tier you're in, and luck in those random drawings. And then really quickly, who you'll work with throughout the process, you will work with a lender, in most cases, right? Unless you're retired or permanently disabled and paying in the home in full in cash, you would have to get a lender. A lender can help you determine how much you can afford, what the estimated monthly payments will be, what the estimated closing costs will be. Now, these can vary super widely between lenders, so it is really important to shop around. And if you shop around in a small amount of time, they may each pull your credit, but that's only going to affect your credit score by a couple points one time if done in a short period of time. About 2 weeks, I think, is the current guidance. And then you can use any lender you'd like. They don't have to be necessarily like familiar with our program. And if they're not, send them our way and we can help get them familiar with the program. And then you'll also work with a real estate agent. You can, it's not required, but it's highly recommended, because the city doesn't provide any real estate services or advocate for one party over the other. We're solely there to, make sure that home stays affordable and the restrictions on the affordable property are met. Most buyers and sellers will work with an agent, and agents can schedule showings and help evaluate properties, develop and review contracts, manage closing timelines and tasks, negotiate price lower, not higher, because nothing can go over that maximum price, but they could technically negotiate it lower, negotiate repair items, payment of other costs, closing dates. And they're typically paid by the seller out of their proceeds, so there's no direct cost to buyers. And you can use any agent you'd like. They don't have to be familiar with our program, and if they're not, send them our way. We're happy to get them acquainted with the program. So that's what I've got for you. Any questions? And of course, here's our email address, phone number, website that redirects to our city website there. And if anything does come up where you're like, hey, this specific situation I have, I don't want to talk about it at group level, but I'd like to get some guidance on, feel free to send us an email or call, and we can talk you through what possibilities might be.
Eli, thank you so much. It looks like Bernadette has her hand up with a question or comment.
Please go for
Yes,
it.
sorry, Erin. I don't have a question. I just want to urge everyone on the call to absolutely start this process. I mean, I know, so I was in this process 17 years ago, and it's really intimidating to think I got to go find a lender. I went to Vectra on Broadway. I went to Elevations, right? That's one we're really familiar with. And I did it. And so just knowing what you qualify for. And again, things could change over that 12-month period of time, but just having that as a baseline, then you start the application process. And I know this was a lot of information, but I tell you really quickly, you'll start getting in it and you'll realize, oh, wait, I don't have assets. Never mind. Check. And like you just start eliminating the stuff that actually doesn't apply to you. So this was a program that I feel like changed my life. And I can't recommend it enough. And if you ever want to talk to someone that's here, that's gone through it, I'm happy to be here alongside with you. So please reach out. And Eli, oh my gosh, you all change lives. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. So happy to hear.
And I totally echo Bernadette's comments. I bought my first home through this program, and I think I made with appreciation and equity $19,000, which allowed me to purchase my next home as a down payment. And also, my home is currently listed on your recently sold webpage.
Fun.
So it was brand new at the time. It was a brand new development, but anyways, it's so awesome. And Bernadette, thank you for your offer to kind of help be a point of contact, and I would love to to Daniela. I'm on the verge of tears. This is so wonderful. Isn't it? It's so awesome. Eli, maybe you can explain this,
Yeah.
but my home was in a new development in the city of Boulder where just a small portion of them qualified for the affordable housing program and the rest were sold at market rate. So it was like awesome. It was such a nice house. What was going on there?
Yes, sometimes homes come into the program in different ways. So sometimes they'll come in through new development. So the city of Boulder has an ordinance or a law that requires all new development to contribute. It used to be 20%, now it's 25% of all new residential development to be permanently affordable. Developers have different options to meet that requirement. It's called inclusionary housing requirement. And sometimes builders, and it was for various reasons, it was uh, easier to do this in the past, but some developers would build the housing, right? So they would build 100 units, 20, back then 20, now 25 would be affordable, and 75 would be market rate. They also have the ability to pay what's called cash in lieu of units. And that actually is not a bad thing that you might think, but that funding then goes into our affordable housing fund, and those dollars can leverage 4 to 1 other dollars in the state in the country to get affordable housing built. And so then some other things we do is we have a funding source to buy market rate condos and fix them up if they need fixing up, and then sell them for lower prices into the program. And so we've got a couple of those available now. But yeah, that's how some different homes can come available. And then sometimes we get homes into the program. We'll get a fully like 100% of the project will be affordable ownership, and that's usually with nonprofit organizations who have similar goals to ours, like Habitat for Humanity, for instance, will build all affordable housing. Did that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Eli, I just want to
Cool.
direct you to the chat. A lot of love is coming your way.
Yay.
And really grateful. You really, as Bernadette said, you're changing lives. So
Oh, thanks.
I want to be mindful of your time. And so before we express our gratitude for you, just want to share that this will be posted on the Be Well, Let's You Well webpage. So again, Eli said we could use this as the orientation requirement. So check that out. And so just to be mindful of time, let's all show our love for Eli and the City of Boulder and the program he represents. This has been awesome. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
And I'm seeing in the chat, I'll go through real quick and answer questions. Because I see where can we find the orientation video at? So I'm linking our how to apply page. Stick around if you want. I'll go take a couple minutes and go through this if there's anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. See you at the next one. Eli, I don't want to keep you too long. Are
Okay.
you okay with sticking around for just a moment and see
Yeah,
if...
I am.
Okay,
I'm seeing
I'll stop
I
the
think
recording.
okay.